Okay, this is HTML, rather MySQL class. We just finished HTML. So this is MySQL class. In this class, we'll be going through hands-on experience on how to create or how to start a project from like beginning. We are trying to create Processguy database backend, like MySQL database. That's the idea. And I'll be explaining the reason why I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing that is different from what I've taught you guys. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start. I'm creating it on my local machine. So these are two databases that we have. Since it's going to be a Processguy thing, we can just create, I want to create a new database here. Base is literally going to be Processguy DB. Nothing special. Okay, our database is set. Now, at this point, before you just go ahead and start creating all these things, you need to have a mental understanding of what you want to create. You get, so that needs to have been done before now. And for me, this is the first time I'm trying to do this, so we will all put our brains together and look at the possible scenario. For Processguy, we want to be able to allow students to register online. Meaning, if it's your first time you are hitting Processguy, you are seeing it, you like what you see, you want to sign up, you want to register for a course, you can just go ahead, register, and then you can start taking the course. So it's something that's going to be very big. But there need to be an entry point. There need to be like, what's the first thing you need to worry about first before going on to, do big things. You need to worry about having the user database or students database, right? So we need to have that. Then we need to now worry about the nomenclature to use, because whenever you are holding information, there are so many names that could mean so many things. What do you want to call them? Do you want to call them users? Do you want to call them students? So what do you want to call people that come and study under Processguy? So those names, nomenclature, you have to agree within yourself and then use them to do whatever you want to do. Of course, they are also going to be able to log on to the system, and we're going to have different users. We're going to have the administrator. The administrator is going to be the person in charge of, uploading videos or uploading content and what have you. You're also going to have the students, which are also users. That's why I say you have to look at how you want to make all these details available. And in the future, you're also going to have teachers or lecturers who are also, I've mentioned 3 people now who are going to be using the system. There's going to be the regular admin person, there's going to be teacher, and then there's going to be students. So how do you want to capture these 3 information? To make things easy, you can just capture them as users, right? These 3 guys, you can capture them as users, and then you can tag them and say, what kind of user is this? You can tag this person as a student, tag this person as a lecturer, tag this person as an admin. So that's kind of creating it easy. And there's no, all these things we're talking about are not cast in stone. You can make adjustments as you go on in your program. Normally, like I mentioned, you're supposed to make all the plans and decide what you want to do, but we'll make all those plans as we go. So we have user database, and the user database is just to give access to authentication purpose, like who is the person. A user is a person that is operating the system, operating our application. That is the purpose of the user. And the user manipulating our system, we have access to be able to log in, log out, and that's the major thing that user will be doing. Other things will also be defined by the role that we're going to add to the user. So this is the table. We have ID. I'm going to ignore this one. Then I have email, because you want to have username. So most times username are denoted by email. So I'm just going to make it very simple, email. And we have our password. So I'm going to tell you what I normally do here. What I normally do here is that, of course, you don't save password in the database. What you save is the password key, or you save the hash of the password. We're going to talk about this when we are creating this information from Python. So now, remember what we are doing, guys. We are creating the structure, how it's going to look like. So for now, I'll just create some sample thing. And by the way, when we get to Python, we might come back to the database and tweak some things depending on how what we are doing is going. We might come back to this guy and tweak some things. So I'll go ahead. We've created our user table. So we have a table and it's supposed to contain user. And I think we need to also identify the role of this user. So I'm missing a column that I needed to create. I just remember. So we need to have the role of the person. So we can just have a role. This is a good time where we can use our enum and put all the 3 rows that we have there. So we can say this person is admin, student, teacher. Information capture on the user table. That means we can actually go ahead and create more table for students. We can create a special table for students. We can create a special table for teacher. And the reason why we're creating special table for each of these entity is because they will have different column. Like for students now, I would like to know some information about the student, different from what I would like to know about teacher. So I can create the same table for them. And because students will be involved in doing some things, they'll be taking some courses, while teacher will be teaching some courses. So let's go ahead and create student table. So because I'm going to create student table and I already have, you can see that the approach I'm using to create the table is different from the approach I used to teach you in terms of the fact that I will first create some data and start creating some table. If you've practiced enough, you will be able to use this method I'm doing. Now, I know that my student is going to have to be able to log into the system. And so therefore, he will also have a user record. A user would need to be a student. A user will need to be a teacher. A user will need to be an admin. So it means we need to have a user ID here, which will be an integer, and it should not be null. Not null. Okay, so this should not be null. Okay, what other thing do we want to capture from the name? You can also look at the fact that we can put the name of the student and everything inside the user table. We can just only abstract what is going to be unique to students and capture that information under the student. So because I don't have anything I have in my head now, I'm just going to create these students like this. And later on, we're going to have all those unique information. Now, because I remember that we need to have information about the person, because the teacher, the admin, and the student, 3 of them have what? They have name. So we can just say name. I don't really need to say first and second name. Later on, we can start, you can start to break those things down later on if I think we need it. I think for the purpose of this project, I don't need to separate all those things. Your name will just do. Okay, it's something that I want to capture, not null. So of course, we want to know when the user was created, the student. Okay, I have this information. Now, what is unique about the student that we will need to create to have information about the students? I already have their email. I will need address. I will need phone number. Need phone number. So I add gender, and I can also do enum. So that gender is a general thing. That gender is a general thing that I might want to get. So I might add it to the user instead. The gender is general. So I will add it to the user. So anything that is general like that, I can add it to the user. So for now, let's keep off that. I'll move on to the next thing. So I've been able to add the student and the user. Let's go ahead and add the teacher. I don't like that word teacher, but let me just use that. Lecturer, teacher. Okay. So the teacher also have what I call the user ID, and it's int, and it should not be null. Okay. So the name of the teacher is already there. Of course, I need his phone number. I will not need the admin's phone number because it's just the admin. So for now, I have this information. Later on, we'll add other things to it, and you will see why we are doing all these things as we work on it. So we have the teacher set, and the next thing we want to do is let's get in the courses that is available. So let's go ahead and create a course table. So in the course information, we have the title of the course or the name, then followed by the description of the course, then the costs.
And the course code.
I don't think I'm doing course code. What we are doing here is for Processguy. I'm not doing course code.
Course ID.
It's already there. 13 costs. I can do. Yeah, we can do cost ID later, but I'm going with the bare minimal that we will need. As we build the interface, we will then decide on what will happen. Decimal. So cost should be 22 or something. Okay, let's run this guy. Okay, so let's run the decimal manually. Let me go and create the decimal manually here. I don't know why he's complaining. So we'll say cost decimal 10.2. Okay. Example of the course content. You will then need to break down the course into sub courses. I don't want you to use the word sub courses. It's more of like topics. Is it called topics or lectures? So there are different ways you can categorize this. Now what we are doing now in this class is called a lecture, right? You're having a lecture, or you can say you're having a course, or rather you're having a topic. We are discussing a topic. So how do you capture that into this? But that might be maybe stretching it too much, but so let's not push to that length. Let's just cover everything here, because the idea of Processguy is that you are going to be able to take this course online, just like you do on other sites. So when you are saying you want to get this course, for example, front-end web dev, when you click it, you should be able to see all the topics you are going to be, that's table of content, what it is that this course is going to entail, and respective video tied to it. So that's the idea. You're supposed to have that. So let's take a step backward, pending when we get those nomenclature, because those names will also help you. So we are struggling with either calling it topics or calling it lectures. So you have two names there. So topic will be like, okay, because this class now is supposed to be like, we're talking about aggregate functions and groups. That would be a topic, or you can call it lectures. So that will just be a thing. So once we come up with a better name, we can continue. Let's move on to the next thing, and that is how to tie students with courses. How you can say, okay, this student is taking this course. How can you say this student is taking this course. We need to introduce a new table to do the tying together. You need to introduce, remember what I told you guys, each of the table must be by themselves first. User is on his own, teacher is on his own, student is on his own, courses are on their own, or courses is on its own. Now that you know that the student is supposed to take a course, you then need to create a table that will join those two things together. This is different from the query we will do when you go and run query. This one is different. This one is still structuring, because the information you put in that table becomes a thing, right? If you are taking Python class, it means that information needs to be there. They are taking Python class. Because somebody can be taking more than one class is the reason why we are creating a separate table. If you cannot take separate courses, if you can only do one course at a time, I can immediately put a course ID here, and that will be it. Student 1 course ID, that can be it. And the reason why we can't even do that is that you can decide to buy another course over time. So are we going to create new students, and with your name, with your information, do you see that we're creating duplicates? We are creating duplicates, we're repeating ourselves. So you then need to create a new table to manage that relationship, and we'll call it student course. That's how you normally create that kind of table. So you create it by joining, or by this is a style I use. You know that the information is supposed to combine students and courses. So you create it this way, student underscore courses. Mere looking at the table name gives you an insight on what that stuff is supposed to handle, what it is that is supposed to be there. So ordinarily we have our ID for the primary key of whatever is going on there. The next thing is that you then create all the foreign key that you need. Obviously, we're going to have student ID, which the information should not be null, because we need that information to go in there. And you also be creating course ID, which is also an integer, and it's also not going to be null. That's for starters. What we just did is just to group the information together. Now that we have this, you will know that there's other information that I can also put here. Coming from the top of my head, I can use this to flag if a student has paid for this course or not. So I can say paid. So this will be like a Boolean operation, yes or no, or whatever. Or I can just make a varchar, or later we can decide what to use to hold the information there. So we can actually use enum yes or no. We can just go and edit it when we create it. So this will be a check mark or a Boolean operation to check if the student have paid. Student registered. So since it's date time, let's create that in the interface so that we don't get error on this page. So we have that created. Let's add the date the student registered for that course. So it will also look like, registration kind of a thing. Student course can also be registration, or I don't want to call it course registration. I don't want to call it course registration, because it doesn't have all those requirements for normal school registration thing. You know how school registration is now, where you have to go and sign. So this one is straightforward. When you get your money, you register automatically. So it doesn't entails all those process of taking to this person to sign, vet a particular document. So this one is straightforward. Okay, so I want to change this to enum. I'll just say yes or no. So this is the method I normally use for yes or no stuffs. I just have enum and then yes or no. The reason I use this method is such that once I'm also running the query, I can see the column paid and I can see yes or no. Very simple to vet. And again, it's good for reporting. I don't need to write extra query. Most times, most people write 1 or 0. And what happens is that when you're running your query, you then be saying 1 or 0. So for me, I think this is cool enough, and it's not too stressful, and it's not going to impact the database that much. So I was thinking about having a date. So we don't need this name. We're going to remove this name here. We need to have like registered when it was registered, so that you can have an idea, oh, this is the date that this student registered for this course. Registered, so we can do date, time, and that will just be it. I'm the only one that is going to be teaching this, so I will just, let me just put it there, since I'm still, because I'm going to be showing the name of the lecturer for each of the courses. So since I'm the only person that will be doing this now, I don't think I need to add that part there. Go ahead with your question. Some sample data here, and let's see how it works. Now remember that this data require or depend on user information, so you need to create user first. So this user will be able to log into the application. We've not created the application yet, so I will just do demo@a.com, and then a password. Remember what we are doing to this password. We are going to work on this password. This requires this is a whole class on its own to explain how to deal with authentication. Then the user, what kind of user that this person is, so we can just say student. Then the name of this person can be James. Okay, so this is a user, verified user, and you should be able to insert into this from the, they should be where you will register somebody for the first time. If you are going through the site, you need to be able to create an account. So while creating an account, the system, based on who you are, if you are a student, you should be able to create, of course, from the application interface, it's only a student account that you should be able to create. You shouldn't be able to create other kind of accounts other than students. So in creating teachers and everything, that will be a different interface. It's just like if you have a bank account, and let me say you have this online banking. The only kind of account you can create is, you can't create admin accounts. You can't be a staff. You can't create accounts as a staff or as a super user. You can only create one kind of account, and that is, in this case, students. Okay, let's go and create students information. So we have, this will be 1, obviously, and where the person is staying, and the phone number of the person, so that we can use to reach them when we are having class or we're having special program. You can always reach them using this method. So this information is saved. Now we also need, okay, so we have courses. So I said that we're going to be doing lectures and everything, so we've not added this, so we need to create a separate table for lectures. I think I'm going to call it topics. I'm going to call it topics, and we're going to create it now. I think topics is better for we're going to create topics. So this one is, I can just call it backend. This thing is really backend dev. Yeah, this thing is getting detailed. I will explain. So let's say this one is 200. This is a public name that we'll call it front-end web development. And this front-end web development, for example, contains HTML, CSS, React, and everything. And inside that, you also have what we call the topics. So let me explain again. In front-end, you have HTML, CSS, React, and Bootstrap, right? And JavaScript. Inside those 4 things I've mentioned, they also have what I call another topic on its own. So we'll have various levels of these things. We'll have various levels. So let's go ahead and say we have course. We have this one to be 2. I think I have a better way I'm going to do it. I'm going to explain the better way I have in mind. But let me start with this. So now we have the courses, we have the students, and someone needs to register for this course now. So we have a student. We already have the student ID. Student ID is 1, and or rather, student ID is 1. Yes, he wants to register for front end. We have 1, and as he paid, we say yes. And what next? Which date did he register? Registered 2024 06. So this is when you registered. This is set. So now we have a student that registered. So we filled all the data, kind of filled all the data. So doing this, we give you an understanding of what's going on. Now I want to implement another level of complexity. I want to implement another level of complexity, and this level allows you to be able to do, it's a different kind of join. It's what I called self join. Remember I said I was not going to teach you guys self join, but I think I will show you guys. It's a little bit complex, and it's a kind of thing that is a concept that most people don't use because it's a little bit advanced. Most times you will end up creating a new table, but with this method you just use the same table. Let me give you an idea, and that's why I'm putting content so that you see what's going on. We have front-end web development. Do you know somebody can say they want to do only HTML, and HTML is also still classified as a course. HTML is also still classified as a course. Back-end web development, somebody can say they want to do a Python only, they don't want to do MySQL. So how do you capture that? That is still a course, right? So I'm going to load that information inside here so that you see what is going on. So let's put HTML and Python inside here. So I'll say Python, and I'll put the information. Then I can say maybe this one is 50. Then let me go ahead and put another one. Let me say JavaScript. And say more information, and let me say 50. Let me add the final one. I'll say React.js. I will do more, and let's say this is 65. Okay, that's cool. Now, how do you do this? How do you then do it in such a way that Python can be under backend, JavaScript can be under front end, React can be under this? Now, the way that, like I said, what other people do, or what most people would do if you are still learning, is that you create another course table. So you can create another course table and carry and put all these ones inside that table. So you can call these maybe mini courses, and call these front end and back end main courses. But all of them are still course, right? They are still course. So my own approach is to create one single table and create a special column called parent ID, so that I can look into itself, because what I'm trying to do is self join. I want to join within itself. So I'm going to create a special column. So I said I want to create a special column here. So what's the name of the column I want to create? The name of the column I want to create is parent ID. And the purpose of that, you will see it shortly. So if I create that, I want to have it close to this. We can't have that. We can't have that, but that's okay. Okay, so we have our course. We have our course table like this now. So you will ask me, what is this parent guy for? What is the purpose of this parent? The purpose of this parent is to tell you that I can actually say this Python belongs to another course. Remember I told you that front end, we type front end to say front end belongs to is a main course on its own that has JavaScript and React. So I can say, okay, this JavaScript is a child of another course. It's a subcourse of which course? It's a subcourse of front end. And what is the ID of front end is 1. I can do the same thing to React. React is a subcourse of what? Of 1. That's front end. I can do the same thing to Java and Python. Python is a subcourse of backend, which means there will be 2 here. So if you look at this very well, so the parent course of Python is backend. And how do I know? I'm using this ID here. The parent course of JavaScript is front end. I use this over here. Now, the question is, why am I doing all this? The reason why I'm doing all this is such that I want people to be able to pay for or do Python class as a course. I want to be able to run the system, run a query and say, these are all the courses that Processguy offers, and still use one table. Instead of saying, oh, these are the main courses and these are the children courses, or these are the mini courses. So there's nothing like mini courses. So this way I can actually run as many kind of courses as I want. Okay, so let me now run a query to show you what is going on, how to do a self join, so that we'll just end the class on that note. Let me run that query for you so that you see it. So let's do this, guys. So when you say select everything from, where are we selecting from? From courses. So we'll select from course. We have this information, right? This is, we didn't save that thing that we did though. So let's go and save. Okay, so if you run this now, so we have this info, right? Now you want to be able to say, because what we'll be doing in the future, we'll be saying that you want to be able to select all the main course alone, because there will be an interface for us to say, we want to select the main course. How do you select the main course? Select everything from course where there's nothing in the parent ID. When parent ID is null. So when you run this, you will be able to select something like this. Oh, okay, you offer front end. These are the major courses. So I can tag these major courses. And you want to say, okay, you want to see whereby you want to now run the main, the mini courses. So you now see selection from this where this guy is not null. So you have this one running like this. Now, another interesting thing is, what if I want to retrieve the name of this ID? I want to know this Python, what is the name of 2? Because there's a name here. This 2 is something. Remember, the reason why we did this one is so that we don't repeat ourselves. That's why we use ID. And this parent ID is course ID. Actually, this parent ID is a foreign key of the same table. Remember, the idea is self-join. We are doing self-join. So how can I join myself? You can actually join yourself. So let's see how that works. So you do inner join. Inner join. Because we are using inner join, we won't need to do where clause again. Because remember what inner join does. Inner join has to be existing. If this number doesn't exist, it won't show. So it means it won't show for front end and back end, because we are using inner join. So we won't need number 6 again. So inner join what? We are joining ourselves, course. So now we need to give it alias. Because we are joining course, there'll be confusion. You can't be having the same name. Which one is which? That is where alias, starts coming to play. So I can call the first table mini course, or I'll call it MC for mini course. And the new table we are trying to join, even though it's itself, we give it an alias. So I'm calling the one we are trying to join the parent, or mini and main. Oh, okay, parent. So let me say M and P. I need to get a name that makes sense. So let's say mini course, mini and major. So let's say mini and major, right? So this is the major course that is going to have this one, while this one is the mini that we are looking at. Now, remember how our inner join works. We have our on, Then if this alias was not available, we're going to do this. But since we are using alias, we're going to use the alias to stand as the table name. The alias is going to stand as the table name. So the major dot the ID, right, is equal to the mini dot the parent ID. What's your question?
The presentation is no longer moving. I don't know if it's from my end. Maybe I should.
Now, what we've done now is to showcase this. What I can do is I want to show the mini table. So I'll do show me all mini table, which will show everything like this. Let me run it so you see what it's saying. So it shows everything like this. But hey, we need to see the name of the major table. We are interested in the name, the title of the major table. So we come here and say comma. Then I can say title. I can call it anything I want to call it. You can then put the major title, which will be added in the front. So if you run this, you get that Python is running backend, JavaScript is frontend, React is frontend. So you can then, well, give it a proper name and say major course. So you see that you don't need to run the where clause because the inner guy has solved the problem. So this one is a little bit advanced. Doing a self join, I'm sure many people don't know about this. The self join is a little bit advanced, but it's typically like any other join. But the only thing we did was to duplicate the table. We didn't have to physically create a new table. We just have the main table and we join another table and I give it another name and I do the join. This parent's ID is a name I made up. You can call it anything, but we know that the content of the ID is picking from what is here, right? And that's what we have in the details.